What's going on, fam? Tuesday night, not lazy booking. Jesus Christ, Birds of a Feather live on A2D Radio. I've been doing that a lot lately. I was napping, running late. I took a nap after work today, so I'm still kind of groggy. But Birds of a Feather coming at you live here on A2DRadio.com from all of our own Real Talk studios. I am Mr. Heel Chrome, along with Pete Evans, Chuck Moranin. No Kevin Godwin this week, guys. Again, Mr. Godwin, I think he took enough punishment the last 2 weeks, decided that he needed to lick his wounds and take a break.
Self-inflicted.
It is. Listen, you put it out there. But no Kevin this week, guys. And we're brought to you by our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at Burlington, Cherry Hill, in Princeton, New Jersey. You can find him on the web. He is specialized physical therapy, and find him at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. So hit up our doc, Paul Vidal. You won't be sorry. Also by Ambuck Services. You need any kind of gutter guards, gutter cleaning, tree trimming, deck insulation, restoration, any kind of outside work. Summertime is here, guys. Time to ramp it up. Clean up them houses. Put your best foot forward for all your barbecues and all your summer needs. Check it out. ambuckservices.com, AMBUCK. Let our boy Michael Ambrose know that we sent you, and you're going to get 20% off of your services, guys. Our topic of conversation, we are back to our best since 2000 series. And today we're going to talk wide receivers. And this segment is brought to you by QB54. It's the best tailgating game out there, guys. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. Check them out at playqb54.com. Use the promo code No Notes. It'll get you 20% off. So check them out. playqb54.com. And the topic of conversation is Julio Jones is a top 10 wide receiver since 2000. Agree, disagree. I think we know how this is going to go, and if you don't agree with this, I'm already going to tell you that you're a jackass. So I'm just going to put that out there now. But, gentlemen, good to talk to you guys again. This is my last show before vacation. I don't know. I may or may not be on next week, depending on, if I'm feeling froggy enough. But it's good to be back with you fellas. Mr.
Yes,
Ryan
sir.
Brodo on the ones and twos in the background, so we appreciate Ryan. So guys, on tap today, we're going to do our top 10 lists of the top wide receivers since the year 2000, as well as we're going to talk about the fact, and we've been touching on a lot of this over the last couple of weeks. I think we have some clarity. No preseason games. We're going to talk about that subject, as well as the major story that dropped this week in regards to what was formerly known as the Washington Redskins, the Washington football team, because we don't have a name yet. We're going to discuss major allegations that have been put out there, and I think have been basically confirmed in terms of sexual harassment and other allegations, misconduct within the organization over the last 10 or so years. So we're going to talk about that at the tail end of the show. So again, if you guys are joining us live, we appreciate you. Join our conversation. We already have some of our lists getting dropped in here, and I love it. But join our conversation on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. And again, if you are listening to us or you're going to have to hop out at any point, you like podcast platform, don't forget, guys, you can also check us out on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or iTunes, whatever you like to call it. We're all over the place. So I'm gonna kick it off here, gentlemen. I'm gonna go defer to Pete Evans. I want to know, Pete, is Julio Jones, in your opinion, a top 10 wide receiver since the year 2000? Please tell me that you agree with this, Pete.
I 100%
Thank you.
disagree.
What?
He's a top 5 wide receiver.
Oh, all right.
Well,
See,
5
when you
is
said I
10.
100% and you paused, you saw my face because I was like, wait, don't do this to me already, Pete. Please. It's too early. I just had a great nap, and you're going to do this to me already? No, let's not do this. But no, okay. Proceed, please. By all means.
No, I mean, he's a top 5 wideout since the year 2000. Size, speed, hands, runs all routes. I don't think he gets enough credit for his route running ability, but as much attention as he gets and how long he's been doing it now, I think he got drafted in 08, 09, 08. I know the
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Falcons made a huge move to go up and go get him to pair him with
11.
Roddy Wright.
2011.
Oh wow, I'm giving this much
Yeah.
well, but still
Crazy,
He
right?
feels like he's been in the league forever.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because his name has been relevant for forever. Ever since he came into the league, his name has been relevant. And as much attention as he gets, double covered, it just doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, how many offensive systems and coordinators he's been through, Julio has been up there. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, if you ask me. So, I mean, anybody who disagrees with top 10 vehemently, you need to have your head examined, or you don't know what you're watching. Don't know what you're watching.
I would bet the house that Kevin would disagree with this, but go ahead, Chuck.
Don't worry, guys. It's absolutely agree with me. And with Julio, I feel like lately, because of the rise of guys like Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill, and then with Hopkins having that big year, I think 2 years ago, and the lack of success that the Falcons have had the past 2 seasons as well, since they lost their in the Super Bowl in heartbreaking fashion. I feel like the attention, the recognition in a way, or like, because everyone still sees him as elite, but I feel like there's a notion out there that he's not number one anymore. But
Right.
I disagree with that. To me, for a few years, it was AB1, Julio 2, and that was set. Like, that was my top 2, regardless of regardless of how you would do them, like flip-flop or whatever. I didn't care if you had Julio above AB, but those were the top 2. And then with AB now, like as he has retired again, when AB started to decline a bit, and now that he's out of the league, Julio, to me, has taken that top spot, and he's done nothing to relinquish it. And I know a lot of guys will point to touchdowns and, he doesn't score in the red zone, blah, blah, blah. But this goes to my point of, like, if you actually watch and context, like, a lot of that lack of touchdown productivity in the past couple of years were because of the bad offensive coordinators that they've had in Atlanta ever since Kyle Shanahan left. And, they had some really bad offensive coordinators there. And I don't put that on Julio. And I think that just look at his talent. Like, he's the total package, size. Like, ever since Megatron, he's been like the prototypical wide receiver that you'd like, that can do everything. Is fast, big, can run routes, just does everything. And it's hard not to see him when you even compare him to the wide receivers of the last 2 decades. It's like he doesn't have the numbers, but if you look at a per season, like his rate that he's going per season, and factor in he's going to be playing for a few more, it's hard not to believe that he won't have career numbers better than a lot of these other wide receivers. You're talking about guys like Marvin Harrison, or Torrey Holt, or Isaac Bruce, guys like that, and we'll get into that. But to me, he's one of the best wide receivers we've had over the past 20 years, and maybe even if you put the discussion even further, like it's hard to argue that he's not one of the best in league history. He's a total package, and he's my number one in terms of right now, and I'm definitely eager to see where you guys have him in terms of your overall rankings for the past 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to it. I'm a big Julio guy. He's my number one guy in the league right now. He has been for a while, and I know a lot of people love the Antonio Browns and other guys like that, and I understand why. But I personally, Chuck's always talks about when he does his rankings, what his preference is too, how he would want to build his team, right? And I love a guy with his size, I mean, and his athletic ability. I just think it's special to be a physical specimen like himself and be able to do the things that he can do. And that's with, a lot of people. Matt Ryan's a love or hate type of a quarterback, right? He's not a guy that people unanimously look at and say, we got to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's had a great quarterback his whole career and this and that. He's a guy a lot of people are cold on. And Chuck's also talked about the fact that he's had some questionable coordinators in time. And let's be honest, the guy should have a Super Bowl ring at this point. And that's unfortunately something that didn't happen. It's not his fault.
It's definitely not his fault.
definitely not his fault. But I just think he's such a special talent. He has been for a long time, and I agree, Chucks. I think people are crazy who think that he's not still a number one wide receiver. I think that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So
I don't know. I haven't heard like when you'll see in a list. I mean, it's longevity, it's productivity, but it's just what you can do. And I really gave kudos to guys who really can do it all.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think when we get to my number one and number two, you'll see that to where number two may have the more elite trait, but number one just changed the game. I mean, he changed the way the position was played. Yeah. So
Yusef says, evening, gentlemen. I see Kevin is still hiding after last week. He is, brother. He didn't even give us an explanation. He just said some stuff came up and he can't do tonight's show. So we don't know what that is. He's probably licking his wounds somewhere up on Mars. But we're here for you guys, and we're gonna go through and do our list. So let's break it. How do we want to do it, guys? Do we want to break it down? How do we want to do this? Do we want to do three? Or I was thinking we could do 3. We could do 10 through 8, 7 through 6. I'm sorry, 7 through 5. I can't do math. 4 to 2, and then we'll all just do our 1 after that. Okay. So I'm gonna go to Pete first. Pete, let me get your number 10 through 8.
So at 10, have first ballot Hall of Famer, who I think all these guys should be Hall of Famers, but he'll definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I have Larry Fitzgerald at number 10.
Okay.
Top wide receiver since 2000.
Wow. He is.
I got him a lot higher than that, but okay.
A lot lower than I thought.
I'm surprised you have him that low, Pete.
I am very shocked.
Which tells me if Pete has him that low, then Kevin wouldn't even have him on his list. So
yeah.
Well, for me, what I look at, once again, I just look at that elite trait. I mean, if we're talking about this ultimate role model, consummate athlete on and off the field, I mean, he loves to play golf, so we have that in common. He would definitely be higher. But when I look at just the division that he played in, his durability, I mean, his hands, that would be his greatest trait. Didn't have elite speed, but he's very complete, very good at what he does. We all know that Super Bowl where he scored the game, the go-ahead touchdown against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Super Bowl that we should have been in, Kevin Curtis. But
or the defense. I mean, let's be honest, the defense.
Yeah, the defense coughed it up. I mean, we had Deshaun in that game. Who Deshaun is in my honorable mentions here somewhere. But just I couldn't put him higher because I didn't feel like he just goes about it the right way. You know what I mean? And he is the first ball off but his durability. That's just for me, for what I was looking for and how I would build a team. And he always kind of had, I mean, he was the one, but his best years, he had Bolden with him. So it was really kind of that. I gave guys more kudos to guys who had the production like a Fitz, but didn't have the system or the coaching like a Fitz, so they benefited from that. So, my next guy, number 9. I mean, he's a wide receiver, but he has the mentality of a DB, maybe a linebacker, a DN. I have Steve Smith at number 9 for me. Just to get in your face, a wide receiver that looks for contact, durable.
Interesting.
And he
I
did it
have
with
Steve
two.
Smith. I got
But
Steve Smith as an honorable mention.
Wow, really? Okay.
Just I don't have Steve Smith on the list. He's pretty close. He was probably like 12 for me. I don't have him on the top 10 list though.
I mean, when you have Jake Delhomme throwing you the ball, you know what I mean, for the first part of your career, you name me another premier wide receiver he had on the other side opposite him, to where 16 weeks out of the season, people knew the ball wasn't going to him. You know what I mean? And then just that mentality. Like I said, I look for that trait. That's not like there's other players that.
Yeah, but there's other guys. I feel like I can't do the who's throwing him the football argument, because there's a lot of guys on this list who did not have great quarterbacks throwing the football. I mean, his size, the fact that he played way above his size, I'll give you that, which is why to me he's a fringe guy just outside of the top 10. But I mean, I don't know. I look at my list of the top 10 guys and I look at it like, I mean, there's a guy who never had a quarterback that's going to be in my number, right at my number 9, who to me speaks way more volumes for the career he had with no quarterback than what Steve Smith had.
And I think we may be talking about the same guy, and I have him at number 8.
Okay.
And that's Andre Johnson.
No.
Really?
Nope. I thought you were talking about
Andre Johnson. I mean, he's on my list, but he's not. No, he's not my number 8.
So that's Andre Johnson's
9.
Yeah, Johnson's my 8. Just we talked about it. Who was throwing the football week in, week out, 8 Pro Bowls. I mean, 1,000-yard seasons, day in, day out. Had decent number 2s on the other side, and we're talking about somebody who could run a go route, run a slant. He did it all over the field, could block, and never talked. He never was that wide receiver off the field. No, I'm not saying I penalize guys for being there off the field. No way is my list reflective of that at all. But with that,
I hope not, because you keep bringing it up quite a bit here, and we're only through your first 3 on the list.
Oh, it definitely changes. It definitely changes. But I felt like I had to give the nod to Andre Johnson. Moreover, like current players that we see, a lot of the current players, they made the honorable mention, but I just didn't see enough of the longevity. When we're looking at just the premier talent, like if I look at a guy like Andre Johnson compared to a guy like Michael Thomas, I'll take Andre Johnson every day of the week, twice on Saturday.
Absolutely.
And you know what I mean? Compared to a guy like Mike Evans, same. So I couldn't put guys like that on the list. I don't
Andre
disagree
Johnson,
with
you on that.
Right. Like I look at a guy like Andre Johnson, who was close to another player that was close for me to make it on the list, but didn't make the cut, was Chad Johnson. That's just me. Or AJ Green. That's just me. Because I feel as if, don't get me wrong, Chad Johnson, quickest feet, hands, all that. But when I look at that per se over what Andre Johnson brought to the game, it's just different from me. It's just different from me. I can tell by the looks. That you don't agree with Chad Johnson.
I'm just going to go in and give mine, because I have Andre Johnson at number 10 for a lot of the reasons that you have him on the list. I have Chad Johnson at number 9. He is, to me, Chad Johnson is the example of a guy that never had a quarterback, that was stuck in purgatory. I mean, the only way it could have been worse is if he was in Cleveland his whole career. And yet, he had a Hall of Fame, without question, career. I mean, talent out the ass. I don't care that he talked on the football field. And honestly, compared to a lot of them, and a lot of the things that have happened with a lot of these guys over the years, that's all he did was talk. There was never anything like negative or brutal about this guy, other than he was a shit talker. But Chad Johnson, to me, is the epitome of a guy, if we're going to talk about not having a quarterback and maximizing your talents and becoming a Hall of Fame talent with nothing around you. To me, it's Chad Johnson. I'm sorry. But so I don't know how you have Steve Smith on your list and you don't have Chad Johnson. So to me, that's very Kevin-esque.
Oh, well.
Very Kevin-esque.
Shut up. Yes, it is, Chucks.
Go ahead, Chucks.
All right. So did we do 10 and 9 or we do 10 and 9?
I thought you were going to comment on Chad Johnson. That's why.
Oh, well, I mean,
go ahead, Chuck.
I'll just say, like, Chad Johnson I do have at 9 as well, Chrome. Actually, my 10 and 9 matches yours. So Andre Johnson at 10, Chad Johnson at 9. Andre Johnson, real quick, just to touch on, I think you can make the argument of not having a quarterback for both of them, for both Johnsons. Like, Andre Johnson for a couple years was looked at as the best wide receiver in the league with no one throwing to him, and he's prototypical size, and he was just he was a bully at wide receiver. And then with Ocho, or with Chad Johnson, I hate calling him Ocho. It's so weird.
I call him Chad Johnson.
I loved Chad Johnson because he was entertaining, and I get it. Like sometimes the yapping went a little too far in terms of like, all right, calm down. But he never got into trouble. He never was a bad teammate. And I just if you watch highlights of him or anything like that, you're talking about quick feet. He had some of the quickest feet I've ever seen at the wide receiver position. You're talking about footwork. Like he was incredible, as good of footwork as almost anyone. You're talking about Marvin Harrison, anyone like that. His footwork was crisp, clean. I only wish that he was in that peak like a little longer for him to be higher. If he stayed more consistent and was that good for a few more years, we would absolutely be talking about him near the top 5. But because it wasn't as long, and for a good amount of his career, he kind of titter-tattered as one of the top 5 to 10 wide receivers. That's why he's a little bit lower. But you look at skill, and you just look at he still had a really good, a great career. So I have him at 9 as well.
Yeah, and again, doesn't really have any relevance to anything, but just look at the way the guy is now. I always thought he was a good teammate. I thought he was entertaining as hell. And look at the way he is with fans, man. He is phenomenal with fans. So when you talk about a guy, to me, there's guys who are divas, and then there's guys to me that are just entertainers and ambassadors of the game, and how these guys can be and the relationship they can have with the fan base. And that's him. To me, I always look at him, and especially now, looking back at it and seeing he's still that same way with fans. To me, he's a great ambassador for the game, and that's on top of the phenomenal talent this guy had. To me, he's an absolute top 10 guy. My number 8 is Deandre Hopkins.
Now y'all make me feel bad. I feel bad.
Well, listen, this is what happens when you don't take time to think about your list, Pete.
Yeah.
Deandre Hopkins, at least I gave it 15 minutes. DeAndre Hopkins is my number 8. I just think he's such a especially talented guy, and again, it's crazy that the Texans really haven't had much in terms of an organization, but they've had 2 of the best wide receivers maybe ever in the last 20 years who are just special guys. And I got DeAndre Hopkins at number 8.
Noogie.
I see 8. This is why I altered because I got so much flack for how I did my running back rankings just based on talent. I decided to do it your guys' way and go, all right, let's just rank them based on career and all that and longevity. So because of that, I don't have Hopkins in my top 10. I actually have him at 11. I was flip-flopping between him and Andre. But I guess because Hopkins just hasn't done it long enough, that's why he misses my top 10. But if you're talking about if I'm factoring just mainly talent, he absolutely makes my top 10. But for number 8 for me, it's where is it? Number 8, I have Steve Smith. I have Steve Smith at number 8, and I think that with Steve, you look at he is the role model, the quintessential, he is what I really, really hope Jalen Reagor turns out to be.
I can't wait to see who you guys kept off the list that you put him on the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm more excited about because that makes no sense to me.
I have so I'll just say I already said Hopkins didn't make the list, just barely.
So let's say all right. So yeah, with you, essentially with mine, Hopkins is maybe one I could see you make an argument against, even though I have him all the way up to 8.
Yeah.
There's a time where I had him almost off the list, and there's probably somebody I maybe should have put on. But I just think DeAndre Hopkins is such a special talent, and I think that's going to continue. But I could see the argument. So I just hope there's no more surprises with you, Chucks. I can't take it because Pete's already starting to get there with me already. You know?
I personally don't think I personally don't think there's any surprise. My list looks pretty chalk.
Yeah.
But the guys that I have that just missed it, I mentioned Hopkins, and then the other two guys I do want to mention are Reggie Wayne and Isaac Bruce. And I just I wanted to include them. I think one thing that Isaac Bruce that went against him is that the prime of his career was in the 90s, and then he kind of he was still a great wide receiver. I don't want to take away from him, but during the Greatest Show on Turf years, he wasn't as great as he was in the 90s. Does that make sense? So it's kind of how do I approach that? You know what I mean? And then with Reggie Wayne, again, just another consistent guy for so long, and I wanted so bad to include him, another one, but again, it's hard when you have the other guys on the list, and it's
I have him as an honorable mention as well.
Yeah.
What?
Isaac Bruce is an honorable mention as well. Hines Ward I had as an honorable mention. Shut up, Pete.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, you need a hug, pal? You need a hug?
Nah, I'm just I don't know how you guys leave a guy that's a Hall of Famer at 15,000 yards off the list. I just don't know how you do it.
Well, when we read our list, you'll find out real quick. And then I'm going to be curious who you left off the list. Because there seems like there's going to be a lot of people.
There's going to be one or two. I thought my list was pretty chalk. I'm like, all right.
Me too.
Pete said, and I quote, before we went on the air, I know I probably forgot one or two people. So I am waiting to find out who those one or two people are. Because it's already clear that there's going to be some big names left off your list. And to answer earlier, somebody asked what we're doing. If you just tuned in, guys, we are ranking our top 10 wide receivers since the year 2000. I'll recap mine. We'll go around. So we're doing it kind of by a 3-3-3, and then we're going to give our number one after. So right now we're doing 10 through 8. Mine, I had Andre Johnson at number 10. I had Chad Johnson at number 9 and Deandre Hopkins at number 8. Pete, would you like to repeat your list?
So I got Larry Fitz at 10, Steve Smith at 9, Andre Johnson at 8.
Larry Fitz at 10 is really crazy.
That's unbelievable. He just literally gave you the Kevin Temple rub right there. We only see that when Kevin starts talking. And you got it, Pete, tonight.
Jeez.
And it's early.
Pete's going to be that guy, isn't he?
Minutes in yet. We're not even 30 minutes in yet. Chucks, who you got from 10 through 8?
10 through 8. 10, I have Andre Johnson. 9, Chad Johnson. And 8, Steve Smith.
There you go. Yeah. So now we're going to move on. We're going to do 7 through 5. And this time we're going to go reverse here. We're going to go around to Chucks. So, Chucks, give me your 7 through 5.
Right. Okay. So 7, I actually have AB. I have Antonio Brown. And I wanted to put him higher, but I have some people I think it's, and I might have screwed up there, but again, I have people on here that it's tough for me to put.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
wow.
Wow. And then,
you got him at 7?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Continue.
But I think if you read. If
Talk
you see
about
the rest
a bracket
of my list,
buster right there.
I don't think that with the rest of the guys on my list, you can argue, but I don't think it's that it's that egregious when you see the other guys. So number 6, barely making my top 5. I have Marvin Harrison. So I have Marvin at 6, AB at 7, and then at 5 I have T.O. Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
You got T.O. that low?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I think Pete's done. Wow. We're going to have a lot of different.
I'll tell you why. And there was.
Please tell us why.
Because it was really close. I could have had him at 3, as high as 3.
Yeah, you could have.
I could have had as 3, but the thing is, when I look at the other guys I have ahead of him,
wow,
that reliability and dependability really, really, it goes against T.O. and that's why I have him at 5. Like he's the fact that he had to bounce around with different teams and was who he was, to me, plays against them. Absolutely plays against them. And then if you want to talk about talent, he had issues with drops. He absolutely had issues with drops. And so if I'm trying to split hairs between the 4 guys I have ahead of him, like I got to put, Owens ended up at 5th. But wow. I don't think it's that egregious when you see the guys I have ahead of him.
Okay. I mean, just seeing some of the comments that popped up with the fam, I think that there's a disagreement there. But, okay.
I don't know
Pete,
what to say.
You want to respond to that, Pete? You got anything you want to say?
I don't know what to say. I don't know how you have T05. When you sit here and say he goes to this team, that team, and that team, he's still producing. Hell, he ran a 4.4 today at 46 years old.
Yeah, but is he in the league right now? I don't want to use that. But I get what you're saying. But at the same time, the 4 guys I have ahead of him would obviously they all were reliable and Hall of Fame talents too. So again, I'm splitting hairs in my top 5. It's literally that close.
I'm going to disagree with your statement because I almost feel like it's a bias because of the fact that it happened while he was in Philadelphia. But regardless of if he jumped around, and Rob Brakeman said it on here just a moment ago, you never saw T.O. half-ass anything. Didn't matter if he was pissed off and arguing with people in the locker room or he didn't like his quarterback or his coach. When he was on the field, this wasn't like AB and some of these other boys. T.O. was 100%, man. That dude was a gamer that wanted to win. And he was always – didn't matter if he wore 27 uniforms. In all 27 uniforms, every game on the field, he was the best wide receiver on the field without a doubt. And it only really happened in Philadelphia to where he didn't play when he should have been on the field. And I can't say it's an overall scope of things. And I think we can all agree that when it happened in Philadelphia, there wasn't just – listen, he didn't handle it the right way. But I don't think that Andy Reid handled it the right way when he should have stepped in and squashed it behind closed doors. We all know Donovan McNabb didn't handle it the right way, and I love number 5. Number 5 will always love it.
Oh, absolutely.
But Donovan was still immature about it. So, I can't hold that against T.O. when a bunch of grown men and not a single one of them can handle it the right way. So, I can't agree with that argument. I could agree if it was a factual – if it was a factual argument, Chucks, I'd agree with you. But there's no track record for it other than 1 year in Philadelphia.
Everything you said is true about T.O., but then the other 4 guys I said it about, it's also true with them too. I'm telling you, if you want me to change my ranking and put him at 3, I wouldn't mind. That's perfectly fine. I'm not saying I definitively have him at 5. I'm just saying it was so difficult for me 3 to 5. That I had to put him somewhere. I had to put him somewhere. Someone had to be 5, and unfortunately, it just luck of the draw. It ended up being T.O. But I could have him at 3. I don't disagree with that.
I hear you, and listen, I don't want you to change your list. This is why we're here, to have these kind of conversations and arguments. And besides, I can't wait to see who didn't get the luck of the draw to fall to 5. So. All right,
is this worse than the worst in the Brady ranking? The Brady at 3
No. Okay. No. I'm glad I got to tell you, I'm glad I wasn't here for that one, Chucks. I would have said, guys, I can't do the rest of the show.
Well, see, this is why it's so funny because I'm going off of I changed my criteria. For quarterbacks and running backs, I was going strictly off talent, and people thought I was.
That's what bothers me.
All right, so I'm going to go off. I'm going to factor in longevity and durability, injury history, all of that, and then I get flack for having AB at 7, and you can't win. I'm trying to go. I'm looking at people's career accolades and awards and career numbers, trying to factor that in. And so I formulated my list. I thought it was chalk, but then again, I put AB at 7, and then all of a sudden, oh, what the hell? I'm like, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? I'm trying here.
I hear you. I hear you, buddy. All right. I guess we're going to move on from that now. We're going to go to Pete and his list. Virtual hug, guys.
You went before. You went after me. Reverse is I go last because I went first.
Well, whatever, Pete. Shut your mouth. All right,
man.
All right. So for me, I have at number 7. I have Marvin Harris. I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. Chucks, you talked about Marvin Harrison earlier. I think Marvin Harrison was another guy, special talent. A little questionable character off the field, it turns out, which was very unassuming at the time. You know,
always the quiet ones.
You never know. Quiet one
it
too.
Is. I have at number 6. I have Larry Fitzgerald here. Again, I just think when you factor all of it in, when you factor in the talent, when you factor in the longevity, if you want to bring up the fact that, again, another guy that never really had a whole lot of quarterback behind him, he's had a lot of change in terms of coaching staff, teammates, quarterback, everything there. And he is still out there on the field performing. No, he's not a number 1 guy anymore. And it breaks my freaking heart that he's so dedicated to that organization that he won't allow himself to go and get a ring somewhere. Yeah. Like, just listen, you'll always be an Arizona Cardinal, man. Go get your ring. You deserve it. But I have Larry Fitz at number 6. And number 5, we talked about it at length. I don't need to go much more into it. I do have Julio Jones at number 5. Pete? I mean, if anybody wants to respond to that. Again, Harrison
I'm trying to think who the 4 you have in front of him. I know 3.
There will be no doubt who my 4 are ahead of him. You will. I don't even think I need to explain them when I do, but maybe I do because you guys have shit all over the place. It's just absurd to me. So I don't think I will. But any response to that, or are you guys good with that? You have
I think it's all reasonable. I think having those guys it's pretty reasonable to me, like when I look at my guys from 1 to 6, 1 to 7. You can really interchange anyone in that middle, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't argue against it. To me, the top 2 or 3 are where you're those 3 guys have 2 or 3 guys have to be locked, but then 4 to 7-ish, it's a mix of stuff, and I don't have any disagreement. So I definitely have no issue where you put the guys. I think that we talked about Marvin Harrison. I mentioned him earlier, but I just want to say with Marvin Harrison. Arguably, out of anyone in the list, you can argue Marvin Harrison was the best route runner out of all of them, the craft. And people like to lessen or downgrade his accomplishments or his talent because he had Peyton. And maybe you have an argument there. Maybe you can make a case he had Peyton Manning. Of course, he's gonna produce, and so did Reggie Wayne. But when you try to just look at his skill set, he was one of the cleanest route runners I've ever seen. He just knew how to run routes to a T, and he perfected it. And not only he wasn't just a route runner, he had great hands. He had really, really good. I've seen some grabs of him, catches on highlight reels when I go back and watch. Man, he could pluck that ball really, really amazingly well, and his body control in terms of when you talk about the toe tap, the art of the toe tap, and catching that ball on sidelines and having 2 feet in bounds, he was one of the best at it I've ever seen as well. So good at body control and all that. So Marvin Harrison, I have such a respect for his game because when you watch him, it's an art. It's you're watching an artist at his craft, and it's really special to watch.
Two Chucks, to that argument, and I'll agree with you in terms of he does get a lot of he had Peyton throwing him the football. But I think me well enough from doing a show with me for almost 3 years at this point. Pete, you've been with us for a year or so. Plus we've done other shows together. As much as I tried not to bring in they've had different quarterback stuff as much as I tried not to do that. I can't fault a guy for playing in a situation where he was fortunate enough to have a great quarterback. You still have to go out there. You still have to run your routes. You still have to catch the football. You still have to make plays on the defender to get yourself open. And Marvin Harrison in his era was one of the best. And I do think because he wasn't such a diva and because he was like a little sniper behind the scenes, apparently, but he wasn't such a diva that, I think that people forget about him and how really, truly good of a player Marvin Harrison was in his day, in his prime. And I think that that's a shame in terms of his talent, of how he gets forgotten about. But, I agree with Chuck. I can't fault a guy because he was fortunate to play with a great quarterback. You know what I mean? Well, I just can't. Maybe he would have been that great elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or Pete, I'm sure you've heard the arguments before. Like, what if he's a guy who played with Tom Brady or played with Peyton Manning, then he went to New England and played with Tom Brady, and then played a year over in, New Orleans with Drew Brees? Would we fault him for having 3 great quarterbacks if he played well in 3 different systems? You know what I mean?
2.5.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But
2.5. Because I'm just saying, out of those 3, Peyton, Tom, and Breeze, one of them bitches don't belong. I'll let you guys figure it out. Between lines. One of them bitches don't belong. So that's just me. If you go back and you watch the tapes from about 4 weeks ago when we did the quarterback ranking, one of them wasn't even on my list. So the other 2 were. But you can definitely fault a guy for having T.O. number 5. I'm gonna say that because I know he can hear us, but he's so scary. All right, so
talking about me, huh?
Yeah, always, Chuck.
Never.
Without a doubt, we are absolutely.
So
good.
Chuck's kind of hit my theme for a 7 through 5 on the head when he talked about route running, and I swerved all you guys because at number 7 I have Chad Johnson. The Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson, for one, footwork is out of this world, hands out of this world. I wish he would have stayed a little bit longer at that peak level, especially when he got to New England late in his career. I would have loved to see him win a ring. Trash talker, can do it all, ran all the routes. I mean, you can go on and on. I mean, Chad it was kind of that career like where he was in Cincy. Don't they? I think that they have their own special chili or some shit too, which is unlike any other chili in the rest of the world, and it only is eaten in Cincinnati. So, and they put noodles in the shit. That's fucking spaghetti at that point, man. Like, stop. At number 6, I got AB. I mean, just once again, footwork, route running ability, hands, line up from inside the slot, line up on the outside, just the perfect combination of size, speed, power, hands. He may be the biggest jack off the field and just not right in the head ever since that Burfict hit. But
yeah,
when you talk about on the field, you saw what he did the one game last year in New England. You see what he brings to the table. Right now he retired, but guess what? If he wants to suit up, I'm pretty sure teams will be knocking down his door to sign him. At number 5, I have Marvin Harrison, man. We talked about it. Route running, just something to be said for that. I understand. I even could have put Reggie Wayne here, but Marvin Harrison was doing it before Reggie Wayne even got there. You know what I mean? And he was doing it at a very high level. People forget he came in when Peyton was a rookie, and Peyton he didn't come out firing like that. He was good, don't get me wrong. But then Marvin Harrison, they worked with him, they worked on those routes, and he just made his routes even better, made it more pristine. And I wouldn't want to run into him in the alley in Philly anywhere, you know what I mean? But it's definitely a Hall of Famer. He's definitely on the spot. I see Britton's from Sports House is commenting, and he said he would have Marvin Harrison 10th. Off of talent, no. Was he not? Was he the most talented? Was he the fastest? No, but he was a hardworking guy. Great hands. Could he beat press coverage? Maybe not so much, but there's a lot of other guys with a lot of talent, good speed, that couldn't do it as well. So that's my 7 through 5. Chad Johnson, Antonio Brown, Marvin Harrison.
Well done.
I have nothing against that. No.
Nope. Me either.
See? You thought it was going to go left.
Don't worry. There's still time, Pete.
Oh, no. Trust me. We got to worry about the man to my left on the screen. I don't. Yeah, that guy.
We got eyes on you, Chuck.
That guy.
I don't know why. I mean, top 4. I mean, I don't know if we didn't give Pete more flack for Larry Fitz at 10.
That's pretty bad.
If we're talking about like now, are you were on me before about longevity and you being consistent and doing it on a consistent basis for a long period of time, and when it came to running back rankings and quarterback rankings, but then Larry Fitz might be one of the poster children at wide receiver for doing it for a long time, and yet you have him at 10.
Agreed.
At 10.
Well, maybe that's because the other 9 players I have in front of him, I just want more on my team.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, Pete, I'll say where I have him lit in a bit because we're about to get into it, but
you have it. So you have him in front of T.O. That's all I got to say. That's
Larry Fitz. I mean, he has how many drops does he have in his lifetime? He has 29 career drops in how many seasons? And when you talk about the most important stat or trait that for a wide receiver, it's hands. You ask coaches, hands. If you drop the ball, then you're useless. You that's the most important thing as a wide receiver. So you're talking about a guy who maybe has the best hands out of any wide receiver on this ranking, has been reliable year in and year out, durable, always producing, number 1 wide receiver for the Cardinals for a long time. And there was a point where he was argued to be the best wide receiver in the game. So it's not like he was always it's not like he was a Frank Gore where Frank Gore was never considered elite or the top. No, there was a time when Larry Fitzgerald.
Frank Gore was like never the benchmark. Larry Fitzgerald at one point, at a point in his career, was considered the benchmark for great wide receivers active in the game.
So, but was he the best
for you?
At that time, yes.
At that time, yeah, I had him as the best.
Yes. There was a period of time in his career, I would say a 2 to 3 year window at least. Which, listen, I think if you're the best wide receiver in any year in your season or in your career, that's a lot. That says a lot about you. Mm-hmm. You're a guy who for 2 or 3 years was considered the number 1 guy at your position. You're a special player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Larry Fitz, man.
Particularly at this position where there's so many skilled guys at this position, I think it's very, very hard to be a guy who can be considered the number 1 or the benchmark for a long time, which is why I think you guys slept on a couple. There's no excuse, Pete, for Larry Fitzgerald being number 10 on your list. That is a Kevin moment.
That's more egregious to me than
it's not more egregious than T.O. being the number 5.
I know. Yes, I say Fitz at 10 is worse than T.O. than 5. To me,
but you about to sit here and say Larry Fitzgerald is ahead of T.O. And you can ask me 5 times, anybody in this chat, if you can draft T.O. or Larry Fitzgerald, who are you drafting, Chrome?
T.O.
But what's the criteria? Again, I changed my criteria.
You said Larry Fitzgerald was arguably the best wide receiver
because
in the game.
I got so much flack.
People want to get on me the best wide receiver in the game.
Because I'm basing it too much on talent and not enough on career numbers and stuff like that. So if we're looking at career numbers and longevity and reliability, Larry Fitzgerald is up there. He's absolutely up there. So, and I already said I could have T.O. at 3. That's fine. I was splitting hairs. But you're putting Larry Fitzgerald, one of the most consistent wide receivers over the past 2 decades, at 10. At 10. That to me, that's really that is more of a Kevin moment than, because at least I gave my reasoning that I could actually put T.O. at 3 and you could have an argument. I could change it if I want. So if you want to get up and say T.O. should be at 3, I'm going to argue against that. But you're so firm at having at Fitz at 10. Like, come on, he deserves a lot more respect than that, Pete.
Here's where I'm gonna side with Chucks here. But first thing I'm gonna say, Chucks, is don't ever base your argument on I said that I could switch him to 3 if I wanted to. So that's that's not a good argument. Well, my argument in your favor, though, is that T.O. is the best wide receiver in the game. T.O. was undefeated.
Because I'm basing it too much on talent and not enough on career numbers and stuff like that. So if we're looking at career numbers and longevity and reliability, Larry Fitzgerald is up there. He is absolutely up there. So, and I already said I could have T.O. at 3.
is Chuck's has a guy who's probably top 3, but still has him in the top 5. You have a fringe top 5 guy, and by putting him at 10, say he's a fringe top 10 guy. That's a huge difference. Like, I could have put Fitz above my number 5 if I wanted to, and I don't think there could have been a massive argument for it. I didn't give my 5 yet, or did I give my 5? Yeah, I did. I gave it Julio. I could have swapped Julio and Larry Fitz, and I don't think there would have been too much of a big argument in terms of that. And he would be a top 5 guy because he's a fringe top 5 guy. You took a guy who's a fringe top 5 guy and you put him at number 10, which tells me you could give or take and possibly switch somebody else in his spot and put him outside of the top 10. That is egregious. It's ridiculous, Pete. And I love you, but you're out of your damn
I base
mind.
I'm not like Chuck's. I'm basing
Chuck's
it off of talent.
A guy who's a top 3 still in the top 5. It's not like he dropped the TO to number 8. Like, then we're having a conversation. Then we need an intervention. Off the air, on the air. Chucks, do you really want to still do this? But we don't need to do that. We don't need to have a Kevin talk. So, people talk about TED Talks. We call them Kev Talks here. We don't need to have a Kev Talk here. But I'm worried, Pete. I'm worried about you. I don't know what happened that Larry Fitzgerald fell to number 10 on your list. It's asinine, Pete.
It's because he did it last minute. Because he did it last minute. It's because I did it off of talent.
I don't need you to speak for me. I did it off of talent. To me, when you sit here and tell me we just had a comment, 05 to 2011, Larry Fitzgerald, the best in the biz, stats-wise. Stats. Get it. Best hands in NFL. When I'm looking at a wide receiver, I need you to go beat a man, and I need you to go make a play. I'll take Steve Smith, Andre Johnson, Chad Johnson over Larry Fitzgerald. That's just my personal cup of tea. I'm not going to sit here and reward a guy and pat him on the back because he had 29 drop passes. That's all well and good. Now, let's not get it twisted. Hold on. NFC West just got good fucking 5 years ago. For the longest time, they was the biggest fish in the pond. And the small-ass pond, the Cardinals was there. Am I right or wrong? That's just me.
What I find really funny is the hypocritical takes here.
There's no hypocrisy.
Quarterback and running back rankings. That's what I was arguing. I was basing it off of talent, and I got crucified.
Whoa. Thank you, brother.
I'm basing it off talent, and then you and the bunch are going to criticize me for basing my previous rankings off talent alone. Then why are we not criticizing you? If you wanted to make that argument,
I didn't criticize you.
I get it. But I mean, hey,
go ahead, bro. Go ahead,
bro.
All
right, that's fine. Absolutely fine.
I knew. See, this is why I popped in, because I knew that was coming. I felt it in the air.
Well, the proof is in the pudding.
Chucks.
Why is it so bad when I do it?
Chucks.
And when Pete does it,
Hey, Chucks. Hey, Chucks.
All right, Brodo.
Hey, Chucks. Take a sip and listen to me, because I have all the answers that you've been wanting. If you're going to, that's a weird look.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
that is scary. Put that shit back.
Yeah. If we're going to be real and honest, because I believe I was one of the people who have criticized the way you've done rankings for not 1 year, 2 years, but 3 years. It's not for the 100th time. The problem isn't you basing it off of talent. It's that you're not equating health. So if you want to talk about how you adjusted your rankings, you're basing it off of and you can tell me that's false. It's on tape. The last 3 years. It's the anniversary. The 3-year anniversary. At the end of the day, if you're going to adjust the rankings to appease the audience, do it correctly.
Yeah, but Brodo, if I'm talking about just talent doesn't include durability. You're talking about just on the field talent. That it doesn't include it. I don't know what's so hard to understand. When you're talking about just a person's talent, it doesn't include their durability.
But nobody's talking about talent. That's where you're getting things twisted. Nobody said, hey, Chucks, don't talk about talent. It's Chucks. How are you going to put friggin' Saquon Barkley number 1 when he's played 2 seasons and he was injured for the one of them?
Yeah, because I was talking about talent. I said at the beginning of the rankings, the show that week, I was like, I'm just going off of talent. That is it. I'm only going off of talent. And that was at the beginning of the show. And no one said a word. No one said a word.
Well, in fairness, I don't think in our wildest dreams.
Where's the longevity? So
I don't think even in our wildest dreams.
Why is it a problem later?
That one coming a mile away. Otherwise, we probably would have said you should factor that in. I mean, listen, I don't care how you do your rankings. I've told you that before. I told you that whole list I put guys on who had injury history. But when I'm talking about the top 2 or 3 greatest in a 20-year gap or in their entire career in the history of the league and anything, I can never crown anyone, regardless of if it's part of my criteria or not, who hasn't been on the football field. That's where, if I'm blanking the greatest of all time, like I can overlook that for 6 through 10. Maybe 5 through 10. But when I'm getting to top 3, top 4, I have to factor that in because it is a major contributor. That's my point.
I understand that. And I totally get that.
That's where I found it egregious.
No. And I understand that. But again, that's how you want to do rankings. I clearly stated that's not how I did mine before.
We know.
And that's how it was.
We know. Take a breath. Take a breath. Now, Woosaba.
Reel it on back. We're going to reel it on back. So, if we're talking about now, I'm talking about longevity, consistency, career, what they've done for a career. Pete, it's still egregious that you have Fitz at number 10.
And that's where you're right, Chucks. I don't know what the hell Pete's thinking here.
You act like I put guys who won't make the Hall of Fame in front of him. You act like I put guys who didn't have a long career in front of him. I mean, we're really talking about Steve Smith and Andre Johnson in front of him, Chad Johnson in front of him. I mean, I don't see where.
I love Ralphie. Ralphie's trying to stir it up over there.
I don't see where it's not like I put Michael Thomas in front of Larry Fitzgerald. I didn't put. It wasn't like I put Saquon in front of AP. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I mean, let's just call it a spade a spade. You know what I mean? I mean, being honest, it's not like I did something like that. I put players ahead of him who played at the same time or played in the season, played in the years earlier than him. And ultimately, if you look at it, were more of a true, in my opinion, and this is where you can get, if you disagree with that, in my opinion, who were more of a true number 1 than Larry Fitzgerald. That's my opinion.
See, okay, so let's get
me on Steve Smith.
Real quick, before you guys continue. Joseph, do me a favor, because I might have missed it. We pop in and out of the app, man, so I don't see every comment. And if it's really a top 30 list, yeah, it covers half the screen. Do me a favor, send your top 10 in. Give me your top, and that is impressive. I could say that's a lot. And I will look at that later. But do me a favor, Joseph. You can pull it out. Just minimize your top 10, and after we're done, we'll try to go back and read some of the top 10 lists that we have here. Okay.
Yeah.
Did he? I think he included people that were before 2000 too. I think so. Joe, yeah, like it's just 2000 on, yeah.
Yeah. So do me a favor, Joe. Just drop us your top 10, and we'll read them. We're going to read some of them.
Yeah.
I just want to get that in there.
Yeah, no
problem. I think that we ignored it. It's just I can't read someone's list of 30 names on the air.
Yeah.
I can do it. I'm going to get back and read some of the things because we want people to participate in it.
Absolutely.
Drop me your 10, and I'll read your 10 off.
The one thing I wanted to say to that is, okay, if we're going based off just talent, I get that if we're just based on talent, Fitz would be lower on my list. Just
so what we talking about?
Wait. But he still would not be near 10. He would not be near 10. That's my point. Like, I would absolutely, on talent alone, T.O. would be above him, no doubt about it. But he still would not be near 10. Like, Fitz was in his prime an elite, talented wide receiver. And I will never get the vision of, or everything he did in that 2008 season to that Super Bowl run. He was taking over games. Absolutely taking over games. And this was before he moved to the slot. Because moving to the slot did extend his career, but he was most of his career he was playing on the outside as a true number 1, and he was annihilating people. So that's where I disagree. If you still think he's only a top 10 talent, I disagree with that. But I see what you're saying. I'm not against you basing your rankings off the talent alone, because that's what I did before. I just still disagree with saying he's number 10 in terms of talent.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Let's roll on. Let's move on. I don't know if this is good for you, by the way, Pete, but Ralph says, Pete, you're good. These dudes have no clue on wide receiver. Totally agree with you, Pete. The fact that Ralphie is your guy, I don't know if that bodes well.
That's
for
bad.
you, buddy.
That's really bad.
But we're going to move on now. I'll kick off this next wave. So this is going to be our 4 through 2. Number 4, Antonio Brown. We talked to him at length. I don't need to go through him. I have number 3, my personal favorite wide receiver of all time. And unfortunately, it retired way too soon. I have Megatron, Calvin Johnson at number 3. I just think, to me, if I go all time, and I know people love Jerry Rice and all these different guys, literally all time, if I look at a guy, the prototype that I love, and it's why I love Julio now, I look at a guy and I say, that's the number 1 guy that I'm going to build my wide receiving core on. It's Calvin Johnson. I wish Calvin Johnson could have had the opportunity to play elsewhere. I'm not a Stafford guy. I think he was stuck. He had the Barry Sanders jinx for his career, being stuck in Detroit. But I love Calvin Johnson. I think Calvin Johnson is a top 3 wide receiver since 2000. Probably top 5 all time, in my opinion. But, it's a shame that he had to retire so early. But I have Calvin Johnson at number 3. And then my number 2, again, we talked about him at length. If you want to know exactly why, you can go back and listen to the argument earlier with Chuck's. T.O. is my number 2. Without question, T.O. is my number 2. Never took a Sunday off, Chucks. Might have played in 37 different uniforms, Chucks, but he never took a Sunday off at any of them. And I think T.O., he's a diva, he's a drama queen. It sucked what happened here in Philadelphia, and he did miss time that he really didn't need to miss because of the drama, but I don't totally put that on him. I think that was piss poorly handled all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter where he played, whether it was San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas, where else was he at? Cincinnati, I think he played at one point.
Seattle, Buffalo.
Seattle. He never took a day off. And
he played Bengals too, right? Yeah, with Chad.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
He played 1 year. 1 or 2 years, something like that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep. To me, I think anyone who doesn't have him in the top 2 or 3, no offense, Chucks, is a hater.
That's fine.
I think anyone outside of the Philadelphia area would easily have him as the number 2 or number 3 on their list. Anybody have any objections or any opinions on my
that was 4
through 2?
4, 3, and 2, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, well, I'm not gonna say that part, but I mean, I don't have anything against what you said in terms of again.
Sorry, hey Don, sorry, you're a little bit of a homer there, buddy, but yeah, T.O. did it longer. T.O. was the benchmark for a very, very. I mean, they both were, but T.O. was a benchmark for a very long time. And again, we're looking at career overall. One guy hung him up early. T.O. had a much longer window of elite. Calvin could have. He's my favorite. But you cannot make the argument sensibly to me that T.O. is not above Calvin Johnson. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
God, I'm sorry, guys. I just want to respond to the my favorite Detroit Lions fan in there. And I love you, Don. I don't say that. I don't say that in jest. He really is my favorite Detroit Lions fan. Thank you, Prism.
Right?
Thank you, Prism. Appreciate that.
Prism.
That's why he's Chris Pronger's best friend.
Stop.
Prism's awesome on Twitter. Prism always gives us shout outs on Twitter. That's all. He's
a good dude.
I'm glad he found us. He's awesome.
All right. So go ahead. Anybody else? Any response to that before we move on to the next one?
No response. I mean,
No.
I gotta say, guys,
is.
it's a hell of a compliment that I've had no response to mine, which means it ain't bad. Hell, I love it. Great.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel like Kevin tonight. I mean, we didn't give our number ones, but you already know who number one's going to be because he's not been listed on my list yet. But with that, we're going to defer over to Mr. Oh, I'll read off Joseph's real quick. So since 2000, he has Anquan Bolden. I don't have him in the 10, but he's underrated. I think he maybe 15 to 20. He has Chad Johnson, Antonio Brown, 7 Marvin Harrison, 6 Andre Johnson, 5 Julio Jones, 4 Calvin Johnson, 3 Larry Fitzgerald, 2 T.O., 1 Randy Moss. Bolden might be. Thank you, Mike Parker. I appreciate that. Maybe Bolden might be question. I think he is questionable there, but when you get to 10, there's so many fringe guys. You really could alternate a lot of. I definitely could put other guys ahead of him, but if that's your guy, I'm not going to yell at anybody for putting someone at number 10, unless you put a guy who should be a top 5 at number 10. But whatever, Love you too, buddy.
You couldn't resist yourself, could you?
I didn't intend to say that, but as I was talking and the sentence was coming out,
you knew where you were
immediately realized that specifically your situation was coming out of my mouth, and I wasn't going to let the moment pass, buddy. Sorry. But with that, Pete, then let's get we'll go around this way, and then coming back, we'll go back around that way. So Pete, let's get your numbers 4 through 2.
So 4 is for me is Julio. I just think when you get to my top 4, it's just guys who can just do it all. Anything you ask, encompassing inside, outside, hand, speed. You need a ball to go get it, and you need somebody just straight off talent to be there, be a consummate teammate. In most cases, on the field, teammate, not off the field, because this won't go off the field.
Yeah.
but Julio at 4. I have Calvin. I have Megatron at 3. I wish, like you, Chrome, I wish he would have stayed in it longer. Because very easily, if he was playing, he played 3 or 4 more years, he could have been top 1 on this list. He could have been top on this list.
I believe he would have.
Top on this.
I believe he would have.
Outside of Dan Marino, my favorite player of all time, my 2 favorite players, I wish that they would have played elsewhere in their career for the simple fact that I just never felt like they were in a situation that they could win a Super Bowl. Marino, I think that, obviously he went his rookie year, and I don't think they always put him in a great situation in terms of the offensive talent, but they always had great defenses, and a lot of times they choked up division leads in December. They were a terrible winner team. So I can't sit there and say he's a guy that would have definitively did better elsewhere. But, and plus I think a quarterback, when you have talent, that shows anywhere. But man, when I look at guys like LaDainian Tomlinson and I look at Megatron and I think about what they could have meant in another city, in a bigger city that puts more emphasis on building a roster to win consistently year in and year out, like to me, I think Megatron elsewhere might have been, 1 and 1A with Jerry Rice in terms of the all-time guys. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. Same thing with LaDainian Tomlinson, and I know Chuck's boy, I'll say the same thing with Barry Sanders, too. Yeah. Those are guys that, without question, I still think Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time.
Oh, yeah, me too. He's the GOAT.
But you look at these guys, man, if they would have played elsewhere, these guys could have had 2-3 chips. And without question, LT might have been the guy to challenge Barry Sanders as the greatest of all time. But
it's crazy.
I love Mega so much, man. He's my favorite wide receiver to ever play. I just hated that he had Matthew Stafford throwing the football to him for all those damn years.
Really?
I don't like Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford stinks.
That's definitely a different.
That's
a different day.
How is this a surprise, Pete? I've been saying this for 3 years with Chuck's. I've been saying this for the whole year I've been on here with you. Matt Stafford's a great fantasy football quarterback, but he is not a winner. He's not a winner. He stinks.
Okay. We'll touch that in a different day. At number 2, I have Rand University. I have Randy Moss at number 2 for me. I just elite talent, roll out of bed. We never seen anything like him that size. He's like the Usain Bolt. He's like the Usain Bolt of the wide receiver position. Guys that we typically thought of fast wide receivers wasn't that tall and that lanky to have that gait with that speed. But unlike with my number 1 player, he always has sometimes in Oakland a wash. You would have never seen in his prime my number 1 player get traded for a 5th round pick because he wouldn't diminish his value so bad. Because when he stepped on that field, he played, he balled out. Don't get me wrong, Randy Moss, all you got to do is tell him run the go route. He run post, he went. That's it. You know what I mean? I got to give him his credit because when we talked about production, talent, Moss has it all. He just, to me, the differentiating factor for me at number 1 and number 2 was his heart. That's just me. It was his heart. That's what it came down to for me.
So who were your 4 to 2? Sorry to recap.
Julio, Megatron, Moss.
Oh, so I know you have.
Before we comment on that, which by the way, Pete, I have no issue with that at all. By the way, I think that makes total sense. Quick viewer poll, an impromptu viewer poll. I need your comments on Twitch, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Which is worse? Pete putting Larry Fitzgerald at number 10 or Chuck's putting Saquon Barkley a few weeks ago when we did our running back poll and again, let's just remind people, these were rankings of the best since 2000. So what is more egregious? Pete putting Fitz all the way down in the wide receiver ranking at number 10, or Chuck's having Saquon Barkley all the way up at number 3. Please drop your comments, and I want to hear this.
Before you continue, I just want to put a disclaimer. I want to put a disclaimer out here. For people who are about to vote on this poll, Saquon at number 3 isn't even Chuck's most egregious ranking. And I'm surprised, bro, that didn't put my most egregious through this time frame up against Chuck's most egregious. That's really what it should be.
I thought based on reaction, you guys thought that was the most egregious.
Tom Brady was pretty.
Brady
was the worst. Tom Brady being number 3 on your list is probably the worst.
In terms of
I only didn't put that in there because I wasn't producing that show, so I missed it. I can adjust. I'll adjust.
Okay. Again, this is based on talent alone. So.
And also, guys, disclaimer.
No, leave it at Saquon because since I'm
just leave it Saquon.
It's that guy, like it's a more interesting.
It's a skill position thing. Leave it as it is. But a disclaimer, guys. Even though you're voting on this, we are all well aware here on Birds of a Feather that there are probably 8 or 9 Kevin ones that are worse than any of these. So I just want to put that out there first, okay? And if you guys missed any of those, Ralphie says Barkley. It isn't top 3.
Come kick me off.
Oh,
come kick me off, Fluffy.
Greg's coming. Greg's about to kick you off the damn show. Wow. Saquon way worse. Fire Chucks and hire me. I don't know if y'all get paid, but I do it for free. You're getting. You got people trying to fire you, brother.
I dare you to try doing what I do.
That's true. Yeah, Joseph. I mean, he brings a lot more than just lists to the show. That's for sure. Saquon at 3, just for the simple fact that he only played 2 seasons. Gavin says. Wow.
Greg.
So. Pete, I have no issue with your list there. I think that's totally fine, and I think our 1 and 2 can be swapped, which they probably believe they are. Kevin's rankings are by far the worst, and this is coming from somebody who's applied to be his intern. Which I'm sorry, Yusef, to give you an update. Kevin has told me that he has still not received your application as an intern. So we need to figure this out, buddy. Yeah, and Kevin's had some lists. That's for sure. That's why we call it a Kev talk. We have to have Kev talks here. Chuck, we're gonna go to you. Let's get your 4 through 2.
Yeah. So I mean, we already talked about these guys at length. So I'm just gonna blaze through it. 4 was Julio. So me and Pete have them in the same spot. 3 was Fitz, and 2 is Megatron.
Okay. A little surprised that Fitz is at 3. It seems a little bit high, but I'm not. It's not 10.
Apparently, Greg agrees with me though. If Fitz is in top 3, get off the show.
I know that may be just as bad as Ralphie agreeing with me. Like, let's just call a spade a spade.
That's true.
But I mean, like, because
I don't know who to go with here.
The reason why I have him this high is because I did want to factor career numbers, and he's one of the only, he has 17,000 receiving yards so far, and he's still playing. Everyone else, I think, is like 15,000 and below. So, I mean, I'm not a numbers guy. You guys know that. But if since I wanted to change my criteria, if I'm going to factor in numbers throughout their career, that I can't ignore that. That's why I have him this high, and the fact that he's still playing factors in. But again, like, I could understand him being 5 or 6 or whatever. Like,
you can understand him being 10 too in the deep down.
No, nobody can understand that.
I'm covering you on my screen, by the way. You can understand.
Shit out here. Nobody can understand that. Get out of here, Pete.
I mean, 17,000 yards. We've seen in the last 5 years what this league has turned into defensive wise when it comes to passing. So that's why
there it is.
Greg's
right. Fitz is a top 10 all time, let alone since 2000.
He would
agree with Greg very often.
He would still be top 10. He would still be top 10.
So no, he wouldn't because
he wouldn't. He's 10.
So then, are you saying Jerry Rice is in top 10 because you put him at 10 and you haven't Jerry Rice?
I didn't always put Jerry Rice on this list. I wanted to bad, just because.
I'm going back to his Raider years.
2005, and he had 3 1,000-yard seasons from 2000 to 2005.
Stop it! Stop it!
I had to talk myself out of it.
A lot of this is explaining.
Get my auntie off of there.
A lot of this is explaining why he's at number 10, by the way, Pete. So you're doing the Kev thing. You just keep handing yourself more rope. But Greg has T.O., Moss, Fitz, 1, 2, and 3. In any order, and I'm good. Other than that list, it's Fugazi.
Fugazi,
whatever. I don't know. Fugazi.
Megatron made my 2 because I just think, But
all right. So number 1's Chuck. Who's your number 1?
One is Moss, and what I will say to this is, I know when we were talking about T.O., like I said, the other 4 guys were guys that gave it their all on Sunday. Moss is the one exception because of his time with the Raiders, and then after New England, like you can say he took off, and no way am I defending that, and I wanted to include that. The thing is, he was so dominant at his position when he was on, and for his time in Minnesota and New England, like I don't think I've ever seen as dominant of a receiver as him. Do what he does best, and just couldn't be stopped. I mean, he would get triple teamed on a play, and he still would get the ball. I don't think I've ever seen someone like that besides Megatron. With Jerry Rice, it was different time, but like physically dominating. There's just no one that was more dominant than Moss. Like, he was absolutely unstoppable. So it's hard for me not to have him at 1, when even factoring in the times where his heart wasn't in it and everything. Because trust me, I factored that in, but he was way too good at what he did, and I had to have him at 1, in my opinion. It was just I didn't want to think about it too hard, and it was just like, okay, what does my gut tell me? And Moss was number 1.
Pete?
I mean, to me, when you don't have your heart in it and you're that good, that just, it says a lot about you. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the motivation is different. And what separated my number two for my number one. They both came from tough upbringings, but Moss at points and times in his career, he used that fire on the field. My number one, Terrell Owens, used that fire. He uses that fire today. Today, that chip is still on his shoulder. That chip is on his shoulder to the point where he challenged Tyreek Hill to a 40, and my man at 46 years old ran a 4.44. To me, the talent gap between Moss at the elite level, yes, but overall between T.O. and Moss isn't that great. And when you I can't stand that he did it, but you had a player out there who T.O. Moss looked at the game, it was his way out, that was his job. T.O. looked at his teammates as they was family. You only cry for somebody when they family. Like, you seen him do that. He cared that much. So when you do that, we see him wear his heart on his sleeve. And you brought up the durability issue. I think it was only one time that the broken ankle for T.O. was his most serious injury throughout his career. He wasn't missing games a lot. Of course, he had the drops. But when you have a consistency of excellency, I don't even know that's a fucking word. When you have a consistent excellence across the board from every team that you go to, he changed what 05 was from the time that he got here. The whole shit changed. When he got to Dallas, shit changed. When he was in San Fran, shit changed. And he did it at an elite level. And we saw Brinkman, I don't even know if he's still in the chat, but earlier in the show, he said, T.O. legend. Standing on the D in Big D, it takes a Big D to do some shit like that. That's Big D type shit. Moss has never, ever, ever done that. I don't think Moss has cared about the game the way T.O. has. Maybe he has internally, but T.O. wore his heart on his sleeve. To me, you can disagree with me if I'm wrong. To me, T.O. is the Iverson of football.
Disagree. Nah,
to me, he was the guy who people hated, but you loved him as your teammate because he balled out. Now all the stories is coming about what really transpired here in 2005 in the offseason where he was doing the sit-ups in the driveway. And you see how he didn't manage his money. He didn't manage his finances well. He doesn't really have a lot now, but we look at him as an all-time great. So I can't. Yes, I can, Don.
See, to me,
you can't make up rings in Detroit. You can't make up the fact that they really did have an 0-16 season. So I'm just gonna say that, but that's neither here nor there. but that's just me. When I look at the two, it's just I feel like T.O. is just more. To me, honestly, he's more outside of the hands. He's just a more complete, all in all, consistent wide receiver to me than Moss. I have no problem with people putting Moss one. No problem. But it was hard for me to put because I don't think you can't look at T.O. and said he had a year or he acted the way that he did like Moss did in Oakland when T.O. was healthy and still was at his prime level.
Yeah. I hear you, and I don't think anything you said is like off the rails or anything. I'll say that first. Like I totally hear where you're coming from. And there was a point way back when where I did consider T.O. a better talent than Moss, but then as the years went by, I changed my opinion. What I will say, and again, it's very possible I should have had T.O. higher on my list. I'll say that. But the reason why ultimately I can't put T.O. higher than Moss. One, when it comes to reliability, I factor in everything that T.O. did, and we say as Eagles fans, we talk about what he did in here, and that's for sure. We don't have to go back into it. We know I agree with you, Chrome, that it wasn't just his fault. It was everyone's fault. I put equal blame on everyone for that situation and what happened here. So I don't put it just on him. But even before that, when he was in San Fran, it's not like he didn't run his mouth and cause his exit from San Fran either. There were a lot of things that went on in San Fran and why they wanted to get rid of him. One of them being, excuse me, that he had some choice words for his quarterback Jeff Garcia at the time, and among other things, he didn't get along with teammates. And then when he went to Dallas as well, remember after 2-3 seasons, they wanted him out of there too because of issues with the team in the locker room. So to me personally, and this is just me personally, if you don't agree, that's fine. But me personally, if you are that detrimental to your team as to whatever team you go on, and that to the point where 3 teams in a row, your first 3 teams of your career, at some point want to get rid of you because you're a hindrance in the locker room as a teammate, that is something to speak of as on par of what Moss did in terms of like he took time off. You know what I mean? Like I personally like, and this is me putting my Eagles fanhood aside as best as I can. I'm looking at the big picture. Is T.O. in terms of reliability, he has those things that are on his record, and those teams did not want him after a certain number of years. Everyone always talks about they used to talk about T.O. is good for his first year. His first year, he's going to be loyal. After that first season, that's when things get off the rails. And it's what happened in San Fran and Philadelphia and in Dallas. So to me, if you want to talk about character, and you talked about like what drove T.O. chip on the shoulder, that's absolutely true. But then he did things detrimental to his teammates. So, and then with Moss, I think one of the things that I forgot to bring up was everyone always talks about also, and this is a big reason why he was so successful in New England, is because his football IQ was off the charts. And Belichick has talked about this. Numerous coaches have talked about this. You have someone who could literally go on a team and learn the playbook in no time. And when I found out about that and did more research and learned about his football IQ and how smart he was, that's what factored in for me for the talent with Moss, is that you have a generational, not only physical talent, but mental talent, and that he just knew how to play. He knew how to play the game maybe better than anyone we've seen in the past 2 decades. He just knew all up here, and then obviously the physical dominance that I spoke about. So at the end of the day, though, I agree with your overall point that if anyone wants to put T.O. ahead of Moss or vice versa, I personally wouldn't argue against it, because I'm just splitting hairs. I'm splitting hairs between elite all-time talents that have been absolutely great in the NFL and league history. So I don't have any issue with anything you just said. It's just that's how I separated the two. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Chuck's on this one. Randy Moss I have as number 1 as well. And to the point that you made, Chuck, I'm sorry, Pete, when you talked about the difference maker that T.O. was in 2005, you can go right back and flip the same thing around on Randy Moss. And New England made the greatest run at the undefeated Dolphins run, right up into the Super Bowl, and he was the massive difference maker in that season. So we've seen them both move on to other places and just be such astronomical elevators and lift teams, really put organizations at the top of the list just by their addition alone. But I just look at Randy Moss, and he's such an unbelievably gifted athlete. And I know that T.O. is even to this day, but I just look at Moss, and to me, I have T.O. as like the number 1 in the tier 2 conversation, because to me, there's only 2 guys all time. It's Jerry Rice, it's Randy Moss, and it's everybody else. That's how I look at it. T.O. to me is that top 1 or 2 right after that. Obviously, at least since 2000, he's number 1 for me, up right behind those 2 guys. But I just, maybe this is where I factor in the fact that T.O. had issues with people in terms of he loved the game so much that it almost became a detriment in a lot of ways. And I think that can be just as bad as a guy who isn't as motivated to put 100% out there. And honestly, like 75% of Randy Moss is better than 95% of the history of the wide receivers in the league. Let's be real.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and you're right. I don't like guys that take plays off. I'm a baseball fan. I don't like guys that don't run balls out. That shit pisses me off. But I look at Randy Moss, and to me, it was Jerry Rice was the guy, and after Jerry left, it was Randy Moss. To me, it's like the Jordan and LeBron conversation. It's those two guys and everybody else. And for that alone, I can't. I can't not crown Randy Moss on this list.
Yeah.
Neither guy won a Super Bowl, so you don't even have that as a definitive tiebreaker. So I just look at the career, I look at the talent, and I see, you even said too, you weren't talking about prime talent, right? Peak talent. I think you might have said those words, Pete. But it is undeniable, but at their peak, Randy Moss was a little bit better than T.O. was.
No, he was. I'll give you that.
And then to me, that's the difference maker when you talk about it. That's where Chuck's criteria of talent alone specifically comes in. Neither of these guys had major injury issues in their career. You can't use that as a definitive breaker. They didn't win a Super Bowl. Both guys went to a team and carried, I don't want to say carried a team, but when you look at New England, they were a perennial Super Bowl favorite. But he took a team that was undefeated up until the Super Bowl. That's something you don't see. That's where that, to me, puts it on a level playing field of a guy who took a team over the hump to get to a Super Bowl. There's so many parallels there. I can only go by the pure talent of their peak. And it is absolutely Randy Moss above Terrell Owens. So that's my number one. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good discussion. I mean, it's a good discussion, absolutely. And I think it's a good point you make too about in the Super Bowl. We all know, was it 9 catches for T.O. in the Super Bowl loss? I think it was 9 for. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 9 catches for
9 for 120 or something like that.
Yeah, and then Randy Moss. The obviously the Patriots were facing a much tougher defense than the Giants' defense, but Randy Moss did catch a touchdown pass for there. I mean, his numbers, he was 5 receptions for 62 yards. But again, Brady was getting pummeled by that offense, by the Giants defensive line all game. So he didn't have much time to throw it anyways, but he did have a touchdown pass. So I mean, in both games, they both showed up. To me, they both showed up and played big in the biggest game of their careers. Unfortunately, their respective teams just weren't good enough, especially in the case of the Eagles, the Pats cheated. So, I mean.
Yeah.
And listen, Randy in Minnesota, I think was a big reason why Chris Carter was able to hang around a little bit longer than he probably would have been able to otherwise. Why Dante Culpepper? And I think Dante Culpepper, before his leg injury, was a pretty good quarterback.
Oh, he was great.
I definitely think that unfortunately affected him for the remainder of his career. But I think he made Dante Culpepper elite. I think he was a very good quarterback, franchise quarterback. But I don't think he was elite. I think in that small window, though, when he played with Randy Moss, I think people felt like Culpepper was elite. And a lot of that is attributed, in hindsight, to what the type of player that Randy Moss was the moment he stepped on the football field.
Now, you think about it, go back to that 98 Vikings team. I mean, that if it wasn't for the shit show Falcons and getting lucky in that NFC Championship game, you probably would have seen. I probably put it on paper one of the top 5 Super Bowls of all time. That Broncos team
might have had a Super Bowl. Hey, you're right. They might have had a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Might have won a Super Bowl that year. I mean, those Broncos teams were damn good.
Yeah.
That Minnesota team was really, really, really good.
Was it Gary Anderson that missed the kick?
Garrett Anderson, yeah.
Yeah.
So Don just asked a great question, and then we'll get to the question now that Brodo brought up. So this is what receiver in this era can we put on this list?
I think we already touched on it.
We already put one on here.
We already put Julio.
Julio.
I'm very close to putting Hopkins.
I have Hopkins on it.
Yeah, I'm very close. Again, it was just longevity. But the next guy for me, depending on how things play out, is Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill, he's been consistent came in the league, and he's something else, man. So I think he's the other guy.
Evolving. He's evolving as a wide receiver, which is the scariest part.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to say 2025, guys, I'll piggyback up a little bit more off of his great question. In 2000, it's year 2025, and we're revisiting this and going, hey, since 2000, let's do the first quarter century. Give me 3 names that you think will be added to this list. Don't worry about taking anybody off. But if you're looking at 3 names now, and we're not going to include Julio because we already put Julio on.
Right.
So we're looking maybe even more at young guys now. Give me 3 names of guys who we haven't mentioned today, who none of us have mentioned, on the actual top 10. I know we talked about maybe there's some fringe guys who might be active that you could put them on. Give me 3 guys each that you would put on, or you say in 2025 have a real chance at breaking this list.
So, I mean, I already said I'm not going to include Hopkins because that was that was honorable mention. So to make it better, I'll go even further. I think that I already mentioned Tyreek. I mean, an easy one also is Michael Thomas because of the stats. He's just going to keep putting up stats with Breeze. I mean, well, it'll be interesting to see when Breeze retires how that's going to go. But Michael Thomas is an easy one. But I'm going to put 2 – I'll name 2 really young guys that really have a shot to eventually be on this. I think that one, Chris Godwin is a superb talent that is still on the rise, and I've loved this game since his rookie year. So Chris Godwin's one, and I wanted to go with try to pick out a rookie from this year, but there are so many good rookie wide receivers that were drafted. I can't pick one, but I'll go with Chris Godwin as my one guy, that young guy I'd throw in along with Tyreek Hill that could make it by 2025 or be like really close by the year 2025.
For me, I think he's the most underrated wide receiver in the league now that doesn't get enough press, and that's Mike Evans. I think he has a chance to make this list if it was 2025. Not sure about that middle one, bro, though. I guess maybe.
I'm not a huge Holiday fan. I don't know what you guys think. I think he's really, really good, but I don't know about like all-time talent. I don't know if anyone else agrees.
No, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I will be remiss. It's probably not going to be well received, but not to put him on this list if he could ever get his shit together and get a quarterback that can get his shit together.
Say it.
Probably this generation's TO, and that's OBJ.
Yes.
Talent-wise, he has it all.
He has it all. He literally could be a number 1 talented wide receiver in the league today. He could be.
Yes.
But there's so much that are outside, team, but then also just extracurricular stuff and keeping his emotions in check, and then injuries. Like, it's getting in the way, but that talent is there. Like, he is so freaking good. So good. Yeah.
I mean, and if to look for a third one, if I'm looking for somebody that's less than 3 years in the league, and that's so tough because, I mean, I would have to take a flyer on somebody that's evolving that I would think that they would evolve. I would probably have to say, I mean, it's tough. It's either I'm thinking of 2 names. One is just a physical freak, and that's DK. If he continues to evolve, but I don't think Russ has that many years left. And the other one, he had 1,100 yards last year. And that's DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is he's evolving as well, but I don't know where his quarterback is going to come from. You know what I mean? Like how, and then now Matt Rule with that system, you don't know how long he's going to be there. So we're talking about 5 years out. But you got to look at that. But I definitely think Mike Evans, if he continues low key, no bullshit. If Mike Evans and Chris Godwin play to the best of their ability, they're going to give Brady a run for the money, the best wide receiver duo he's ever had.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
they give him a look that's different than what Moss and Welker did.
Yeah.
Because Welker was more inside. These are two guys that can line up on the outside and just have it. Like they just like you realistically, you see a season this year, you can have OJ Howard, Gronk, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin on the field at the same time. And Bruce Arians
ridiculous.
behind. It's
It's insane.
That's why I put it on record. New Orleans Saints ain't winning the fucking NFC South. Book that. Book that right now.
I mean, you guys said a lot of great names. I agree with a lot of them. You know, Mike Evans, I think, is one. OBJ, definitely. If I'm going to throw one that I think could be an interesting name, I just hope that he gets a quarterback at some point, because it's a guy that I felt like would have been better with the scenery change, and I'm not impressed with what I've seen. I like Adam Thielen a lot. I think Adam Thielen is a guy who has a lot of talent, and if he ever gets a really, really good quarterback that's not named Kirk Cousins, I think that he is a guy who could continue to evolve and get much better and be an elite guy for a long time. I mean, we'll see this year, too, without Diggs being around, what we're going to really have. But
that's big.
I think that he is a special guy. I think there's a reason that they kept him there. And we'll see. But I think that Adam Thielen's a guy I would add to that list. And honestly, if I'm going young, and I know you guys are going to hate me for this because it seems like a trend lately, a guy who hasn't stepped foot on the field, but I just have a gut feeling that he is going to be unbelievable, and it's CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to be an absolute beast in Dallas. And that's an organization, too, that is going to constantly spend and constantly do what it can do to compete. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to put up a hell of a lot of numbers in his career if he can stay healthy. So, I mean, if we're going real young, I think that's a guy that in 5 years we may be saying had a pretty great first 5-year window or 4-year window if they don't play this year. So that was good stuff, guys.
Good question.
Yeah.
So we're going to transition, and again, let's just read down our list real quick, and then we'll move on. So for myself, I had at 10, I had Andre Johnson, 9, Chad Johnson, or Ocho Cinco, whatever you want to call him. 8, I had DeAndre Hopkins. 7, Marvin Harrison. 6, Larry Fitzgerald. 5, Julio Jones. 4, Antonio Brown. 3, Megatron, Calvin Johnson. 2, T.O. And number 1, I had Randy Moss. Pete?
So at number 10, I had He Who Should Not Be Named. Number 9.
Say it. Own it. You say it and you own it.
Put some respect on his name, man.
Man, Fitzy, man. I had Fitzy, man. Mr. Durable. Mr. Durable. Steve Smith at 9.
Like
Andre Johnson at 8. Chad Johnson at 7. AB at 6. Harrison at 5. Julio at 4. Megatron 3. 2 Moss. 1 T.O.
Cool. Honorable mentions for me were DeAndre Hopkins, Isaac Bruce, and Reggie Wayne. And then 10, Andre Johnson. 9, Chad Johnson. 8, Steve Smith. 7, Antonio Brown. 6, Marvin Harrison. 5, T.O., although he should be higher. 4, Julio Jones. 3, Larry Fitz. 2, Calvin Johnson. And 1, Randy Moss.
I mean, Torrey Holt's another guy that definitely should get consideration.
Yeah,
I had him. He was a fringe. At one point, I had him at 10, and then I shifted him off.
So
Torrey Holt's a guy that 1,000% should be mentioned in this conversation.
So give you a guy. I mean, hell, he was just at what point, because he's been in the league now 12 years, at what point would you put D-Jax on this list?
Oh, top 25 maybe. He's had injury issues. He's had a lot of different issues.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like top 20.
I maybe, I don't know.
Like that, yeah.
I think safely I would say maybe 25.
Yeah.
I'm not saying at 25, but I know for sure I'd have him within the top 25. I don't know definitively without making a list that he would make 20. He could make 19 or 20 for me, but I can't say that definitively. My issue with Djax is he has superb talent, but I almost feel like it's go big or go home with him. And I feel like I want to say he's like a one-trick pony in that it's deep ball or bust. But I feel like that has defined so much of him. And when we're making a list of the greatest, I don't think he's diverse enough, honestly, to make the top 20 list for me. He could have better stats overall. But, I mean, we've seen games with this guy where he has 150 or 160 receiving yards with, a catch for 80 yards and a catch for 37 yards to bulk up those numbers. And then the next game he comes out and he's got 2 catches for 23 yards.
You remember when he was his most versatile when Chip was here?
Agreed.
That's when he did it all.
Used differently, right? But there was such a small window for that, Pete, that I just don't.
It's Chip.
Yeah, I mean, I know we love him here, and I think that in terms of if we were doing like deep threat wide receivers,
oh yeah.
He might be number 1 or he's at least number 3.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I just, to me, he might be more diverse, but in terms of what we've seen throughout his career, he's been given one job to do, and he's done it very well, but I haven't seen enough of the rest for me to put him probably in the top 20. So I would say 25.
Okay.
The thing with me for Djax is, like, for a certain role that you want, he's so important and so good. And you can argue that he's elite in that specific role.
Correct.
But if you want to go in a scope of wide receivers that you could build your offense around as true wide receiver ones, I don't think Djax was ever that. That's why it's hard to rank him, because he serves a specific role as good as anyone in league history, but that role isn't as your number 1 guy. And that's why. I mean, like, there was a point where not a point, but I feel like based on talent alone, Macklin was a better all-around wide receiver than Djax was.
No argument.
But Djax he's had a longer career because of the role he's in. He's able to do the things that he's done for such a long time. And that I don't want to seem like that's discrediting him, because I want to make it clear that the fact that he's so good at what he does is actually a credit, because that's just how the game is, like you said, evolved. The game is evolving, and the fact that he's been able to, in a way, he's like been a trendsetter in that sense, and is that teams now have these guys who they use specifically as deep threats. And that's become so important now. I mean, you've seen last year without him, the Eagles' offense was not the same. So he has the time. And when he was on the other team, the Redskins and Bucks, every time he played us, all it took was the one play from him, and it changed the momentum of the game. So he's one of the best ever at what he does, but it's hard to put him that high when he's not a foundation guy. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
All right, good shit. So Yusuf had a question, and I know it was on our agenda today, kind of twofold with the Washington Football Club.
Whatever. I don't care what
we'll
they
see.
say.
I don't know.
To be honest, I don't even know what any of those things mean.
I don't know.
Disclosure: one of my closest friends is a diehard Washington fan, and he sent me so many renderings of uniforms from like Red Wolves. Like, I'm just like, dude, like, it doesn't matter. It matters. I mean, Red Tails is for the Tuskegee Airmen, so I mean, they could go that route. But Red Wolves, I mean,
Red Wolves sounds very Arena Football League to me.
Doesn't it? It sounds B grade to me.
It sounds it doesn't sound professional. Red Tails, with the meaning behind it, with it being Washington, it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I think it would take some getting used to, just because it is very different. But The other one sounds absolutely arena football to me.
And,
I mean,
yeah,
you
like
know
why
what
does
though?
it
I
need
felt like the Titans was the same way when they renamed them the Titans, and I got used to that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, it's just weird. I don't feel like why does it need to have the word red in it? Let that go. That serves you. You know what I mean?
Well,
You could do foreskins. There, have skins in it.
well, that's fucking... From a marketing standpoint, though, Pete, everything that they do is the HTTR thing, right? Hail to the red, whatever.
Okay.
So
Right.
marketing wise, it makes sense. They
Good
don't
point.
have to do a whole lot of changing in terms of team colors and things like that.
Right.
So, because I think one of the big things is, I got friends that are I'm talking diehard, like crazy Redskins fans that live in the area down there. And I mean, they have everything and anything. Their freaking house is like crazy with it. And all that stuff almost feels like it's a waste, right? If you
Yeah.
totally change the color of the team and you do this and that, it's like a whole different team at that point. So I think the idea is let's do the right thing. Let's change the name, but let's not completely overturn our fan base on this thing. You know what I mean? And again,
Right.
the HTTR thing has been such a part of their culture that they're able to maintain that by having something with red in it. So
They can call themselves the Red Rifle, but I think the Washington Red Rifles. I mean, but I think Andy Dalton may have a trademark on that already. So,
yeah.
but
Could be.
So on the flip
The Red
side,
Rockets.
how do we feel about the scandalous in Washington? Washington and scandal goes fucking hand in hand. Like, you know what I mean? It's just
I was just gonna say, it's Washington D.C. Like, are we shocked that there's a scandal? No, you know what, man? It's like the old boys club down there, brother. It's we talk so much, and we don't have a ton of time, so I don't want us to get on a crazy tangent. But it's just another one of those reminders, right? Of we think that we're such an evolved society, right? And
Right.
with everything going on, and we've talked about it at length. I don't think we need to get into it this week with that. But I add this to that in terms of, I'll bring this up as another. It's kind of similar, right? In professional wrestling now, they have the Speak Out movement, which is their version of the Me Too movement, and it's the. How do we not know at this point that you're going to send text messages, you're going to send DMs, you're going to send videos, and that shit is not going to get out there. Like, people aren't going to take screenshots. Like, that never goes away. How do we know? Like, how are we still in a society that you go into work and we're basically propositioning people to leverage ourselves, and we think that that's not going to get out there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Someone's always listening, man.
We're going to position, or we're going to back people into a corner for our own devious or sexual pleasure and think that that's okay. Like, it's fucking 2020. Like, it was never okay. But now at the age of technology and the fact that you can ruin your life and that everybody is now starting to speak on these things.
Yeah.
I think the difference between when we talk about systemic racism and that stuff in the country, as opposed to all this stuff that comes out with this Washington situation, is that whether it was handled or whether the growth was there properly, at least civil rights has been a discussion now since the 1950s. I mean, before, but really ramped up in the 50s and 60s, right? It's been a discussion. This stuff was always don't ask, don't tell, don't talk about it for years, up until I would really honestly say sexual harassment became a real thing, particularly in the workplace, over the last 15 to 20 years, where it was starting to be discussed, particularly probably over the last 5 to 10 years. How long have we been working? I don't think I took a sexual harassment course for work until maybe 5 years ago. So like now it's a thing. It's a main focus, right? So this is kind of uncharted territory as opposed to reigniting and amplifying the conversation about systemic racism and intolerance in this country. And I just don't understand how in the age of technology where you hear the stories, you could get alerts to your phone telling you about the Epsteins of the world and the, what was the freaking movie producer? Weinsteins. And all these other people out there. And then you could walk into your workplace and pull the same kind of shit and think you're going to get away with it. Like, it's just, this country is so fucking stupid. And these guys have everything to lose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have everything to lose by doing this. When are we going to become an evolved society? When? And as far as I'm concerned, fuck them. Like, that's my thing. You know, I hope that every one of them fall and are basic, every bit of their lives crumble right now because they are douchebags. That shit is crazy, some of the stuff you read about.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And it's a culture that they allowed to happen for years. You can't tell me that son of a bitch Snyder didn't know what was going on.
Ignorance is not an excuse, man.
He may not have actively participated, guys, but listen, we talked about Penn State how long ago and the culture that was there. And you know what it was? Turn your head, don't ask, don't tell. It's the same shit here. It just wasn't with kids, it's with women.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, fuck him, fuck them. They should call them the red cocksuckers as far as I'm concerned.
No, you said a lot, and I agree wholeheartedly. Like that, we all kind of already knew that Dan Snyder was or is a scumbag of a human being. Doesn't know what he's doing running that team. I mean, in terms of what's going to go on from here on out, I don't know what to believe. I mean, he issued that half-ass non-apology statement, which was
a joke.
It was horrible. And I've heard reports that there's nothing there's nothing in place to be able to force him out. But I've heard conflicting reports saying that the rest of the owners of the league are absolutely fed up with Dan Snyder. This isn't a one-time recent thing. This is something that's been going on for a long time, and they're fed up with everything that Snyder has done with that organization. So I honestly don't know what to expect. I don't know if he'll be forced out or not. As a football fan, like it's like fine if Snyder stays, that organization is going to be horrible. So, but as a human being, you like this can't go on. Like this has to be changed, and it starts from the top. So if this culture needs to be changed, has to be changed, then he does have to go, or something has to happen where heads have to roll, because this is unexcusable. In that report, what's been said, like you said, Chrome, the stuff that was said in that report was inexcusable. The fact that it's happening for so long in a professional football organization, in a business that's this huge and part of the American culture, this went on for this long. It's inexcusable.
But that's the thing, Chrome. Like, to speak real quick, the American culture is fucked. That's the only way you really can solve something like this is you just got to wipe the board completely clean. And it takes the other 31 owners to say, we can't have this shit represent the Shield at this moment in time. It was never good in the first place, but definitely not here in 2020. You already had one leg kicked out from under you from all the sponsors for to make you change the name. And then it feels like somebody took this and just held on to it. And then they boom, it's like somebody really wants Snyder going and they really want some reform. And this can say a lot, it can speak volumes. And if you have somebody like a Jeff Bezos that's there to buy the team, you can, if the season doesn't start on time, you can do a quick sell to the team. So you really, the league is presented with an opportunity to really change the culture in one of the premier cities and heralded franchises of the history and the heritage of the league. This is your time. You can change the name, you can change the owner, get rid of all that bullshit, and change the whole culture for one of your 32 clubs that you had. As now it's just really, if like you said, the good old boys club, It extends beyond. That's the problem, Chrome. We know it extends beyond ownership. It goes all the way up. You're in Washington. You know what that scandal said, who pulls the strings in Washington. And trust me, it's probably not even the guy that's in office right now. There's secret people behind that's running everything. You know what I mean? So it's not just. It's gonna take a lot. You gotta tear down that wall, man.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what, too, Pete? I think that, first of all, in talking about or responding to Chuck's, I don't know if they're going to be. It's going to depend on how good they covered his tracks. There's nobody that's going to tell me that he didn't know what was going on. Now, was he able to cover his tracks well enough that they can't prove his knowledge to the extent where it warrants removal from the league in terms of ownership? We'll find out. However, I'm curious. They were so against changing the team name for years. And even with the original outcry again this year, after everything that's happened in this country, still defiant to do so, I'm almost curious that no, I don't think necessarily that it was because of George Floyd and everything else going on with Black Lives Matter and everything else in this country. And now people are looking at different things in terms of how things are viewed in systemic racism and whatnot. I don't necessarily believe that was the determining factor. I believe now, because of the timing of all of this, that yes, maybe that is a factor and maybe something they could use to spin it. But it, like Pete talked about, I almost feel like they knew this was coming, and this was a chance to try to get the conversation off of that, change the identity of the team, and try to start from scratch there. And I feel like I really truly believe now that that's the main motivation. Not that we're going to do the right thing and change a team name that should have been changed years ago because of all of this. I believe it's still selfish reasoning, and I'm trying to think of the right word, but stupidity, basically, that this is why this is happening. And I mean, if that's what if that's the important thing, that the team name is changing, but it's shocking to me, all of this that goes down, and he releases that most ridiculous bullshit statement and expected people were going to take that.
I mean, look, Jerry Richardson was forced out of Carolina for less.
Yeah, like not the same level by any means.
It's not.
No, definitely not that. But I was going to say, Pete, I thought that I saw maybe the worst owner response statement ever when the Houston Astros cheating scandal came out. I didn't think it would ever be topped by that. That was awful. There was no accountability. It was that, we're going to change this and this, and basically scapegoated off on the manager and the GM. But man, this was as bad as I'd ever heard. It was pointless. It gave us nothing. It took no accountability, no apologies. I'm not encouraged that this organization is going to change its culture. To me, I got caught with my hands in the cookie jar, so I have to say something here.
Right.
And hopefully it'll go away because, hey, we're changing our team name, by the way. Fuck, they probably paid that dude to trademark all those fucking names, so that could be another story to take the attention off. Wouldn't surprise me, guys. It's just crazy to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching out. Maybe I'm hitting the conspiracy button. But I mean, it's just we're not an evolved enough society, guys, and we need to be. And it's sad. I'm glad that I have good people like you guys in my life, and I guess Kevin too, for the most part, who are evolved.
We all need laughs. That's what I think about Kevin. We all need laughs.
No, Kevin's a great guy. We know that. Like, we have evolved people who understand and see things from a realistic standpoint. It's amazing that a lot of people can't. So, good for those women for speaking up, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
Good for those women for speaking up, because that needed to happen. This shit, it needs to happen more. when it's right. We do see cases where there's people who were jaded, guys and girls, who accuse people of things because they're pissed off. We've seen it happen with, in some of the Me Too stuff where it's turned out that it was false accusations. But this clearly is an issue, and I'm glad that people were speaking up on it. Anything else, gentlemen, for the good of the cause before we can talk preseason next week or next week. Anybody got anything good for the cause?
Nah, but real quick, the people who may say, well, the one girl, she was there for 13 years, like, why all of a sudden now would you leave? Listen, man, it's just like when you're in an abusive relationship. A lot of people, you can't see the cycle of madness that you're in. And it takes a breaking point to really break that. I mean, but I would just say this, even if Snyder truly didn't know, which we won't all believe anyway, ignorance is not an excuse. You have to make an example. And the 31 other owners, more than so than Goodell, they're gonna make an owner for this. Like they want to make an example. Like you can't do this. Like this is prestigious. There's only 32 of us, and you're one of the ones out of the 32 of us who are always defiant. We've been asking you to change this name for the longest time, and now you have this on top of that. Whether or not you try to do some damage control, try to do a sleight of hand, it's not. You can't. You shouldn't be rewarded for that. You shouldn't be rewarded for that, and you should be held accountable. And let the chips fall where they may.
Agreed, Pete.
And the last thing I'll say is just like, this is the one part that really stuck out to me was that, one of the, or maybe all of them individually had said that they considered saying something, speaking out, but it would be the organization's word against theirs. And that's such a, it's not even just that applies to this situation. It applies to so many other situations with sexual harassment. And it's a real shame. And I wish things were different because if you're someone, I can only imagine how scared women of harassment feel. Because when you go through something like this, but you are trapped to the point where you feel, even if you try to speak up, no one's going to hear you, or there's nothing you can do to make something happen. That's a horrible and helpless feeling. And it just goes to show, like, as a society, as a culture, as a whole, we have to be different. And my heart and my prayers go out to them. And it's a shame that it had to take this long for them to feel like something could be done as a group, because none of them should have to go through any of that.
Let me tell you, and I'm not going to name company names. I'm not going to name people's names. I worked for a company, and I was a supervisor, and I had an issue with somebody who was making remarks that were inappropriate. And I can tell you guys, particularly with powerful companies, it takes a lot to get anywhere. Someone could speak up, and you could be observant to it and do the right thing like I tried to do. And not just myself, my counterparts as well. But it's your word against theirs. And I'll be honest with you, the company is going to take err on the side of caution. Without physical proof or admission, nothing's going to happen. So eventually I had to physically see it and hear it, and the person not know that I was around. And then that person, for whatever reason, actually admitted to saying it for us to finally be able to terminate that person. It took over a year of multiple issues to get that done. Imagine when you want to say, how do you sit back and you deal with it or not say anything? Imagine being one person who is in that situation and has to take on a billionaire, because essentially at the top, that's who you're going against. It's him and everybody that falls under him. So imagine the pressure of feeling like you and your word alone against all these other people who are going to protect the interest of the money that backs that company or team. So don't pass judgment on people who, like Pete said, are stuck in a cycle of abuse and or feel helpless to handle it. Because that's not your place to judge when somebody does something or why they do it. So if you're that person who wants to make that comment, wake the fuck up. That's why we're not an evolved nation right now.
Yep.
True.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate you.
Love you, Don.
Pete. This is the first time I've seen Pete get hate on the show. It's all love hate. This is the first time I've seen Pete get some hate, man. Chuck has gotten his fair share.
Welcome to the group, Pete.
I don't think I've gotten too trashed, minus my Trubisky takes sometimes, but that's the first time I've seen Pete get a little flack.
I will say
this was fun.
Pete, I will say this: when you're you got to be a little bit brave to be bold and to have an original thought. So, welcome to the club. I'm glad you got some heat for the first time.
Guys, this was a great show. A lot of fun talking wide receivers. Hey, we managed to have arguments without Kevin here. Who'd have thought, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I honestly thought this was going to go a lot smoother than
I thought so too.
When Pete kicked it off with Fitzgerald, I was like, oh, wow, this is not going to go how I thought this was going to go. But I want to thank all of our –
I was like, I couldn't say anything. I was like, I haven't even gotten my feet wet yet.
I want to thank all of our viewers. If you watch us on Twitch, if you watch us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, we appreciate you guys. If you missed any part of this, again, go back on the archives on any of those sites. You can physically watch us. It's a lot of fun watching us, guys, because we argue a lot on this show. And I think sometimes just seeing the facial reactions is worth it. But if you're a podcast person, if that's your shtick, you like audio, maybe you listen while you're at work or when you drive to work. If you're someone who's out and about and you're a necessary person to be working, check us out on SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio. You can find us all over the place. You guys, great comments in today. Yes, there will be a fix in the PM tomorrow. That was asked by, I believe, Gavin. Hopefully we'll have Kevin back next week. Unless the state of Florida shuts down, I'll be away next week. But I might still do a show because even where I'm going, the resort basically shuts down at like 7 or 8 o'clock. So I might just tell you guys wait till 8 until I get back, right? Or hop on after a few minutes. But anyway, thank you to our sponsors, Dr. Paul Vidal, Burlington Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey. Find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Ambuck Services, AMBUCK Services.com. Let Michael Ambrose know we sent you. Get 20% off. PlayQB54. PlayQB54.com. Promo code no notes. That's going to get you 20% off. Shout out to our boys over at Philly Drinkers. Lots of great A2D merch. I'm going away. My whole freaking wardrobe going away is going to be all A2D merch. Get your show shirt. Get your Birds of a Feather shirt. Get your Lazy Booking shirt. Get your Fix shirt or any other shows on this station. Make sure you guys pick those up. Hey, go get your Philadelphia Quarterback Factory shirt. It's great. Use a promo code A2D. It's going to get you 25% off that shirt, not your whole order. That shirt. Tumblers. The most comfortable shorts I've ever worn, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it. Any of you guys got the shorts?
I don't know what.
Okay. We're gonna do a live on-air feedback of the shorts because I can tell you, I promise you guys, I'm not blowing up smoke up anybody's ass. They are I can live in them. They're the most comfortable shorts I've ever put on in my life. But you get all that great stuff, stickers, everything else over at PhillyDrinkers.com. Shout out to Alex. We love him and all the work he does. His partnership means a lot to us. And again, to you, fam, thank you guys for helping us out and joining us. Stay safe this week. Stay home if you don't need to be out. And if you do, put your mask on, please. Doesn't have to be about you. Look out for everybody else. Hold each other accountable. And thank you to Ryan in the back end here for producing a great show and having a dynamite pop in on Chuck's to bring the hammer down when necessary.
Love you, man.
But for myself, Chrome, for Pete, for Chuck's, wherever you guys are at, and for the absent Kevin, we love you guys and have a great rest of your week.
Peace.